Nice guy, though.
Uh-oh.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming to the Today's Restaurant News Networking Group. Today is May the 24th, the beginning of the Memorial Day weekend. And we are here because we are a group of vendors who are trying to help each other grow our businesses and also to help other restaurant owners, managers, or chefs who might have a problem with their business and they want to talk to somebody who can help them. We're here to help. If you want to join us as a vendor or ask a question as a restaurant, give us a call at 561-620-8888 or go to our website at trnusa.com and check out our YouTube channel with our videos totaling over 325 now, and you can go to that channel through our website, or you can go direct by searching Today's Restaurant.
Okay, that's weird.
Dwayne is spraying some company.
Oh, blame it on Dwayne.
Oh my God.
Let me.
Please me.
Hold on a minute. I'm gonna. Dwayne, can you hear us? Somebody's got a lot of feedback, and I think it was you, Dwayne. Hold on a second.
No, we'll make it fast one anyway.
Yeah, it's Dwayne. I just muted him and it was Dwayne. He's getting a lot of feedback from, I don't know why, but we're here. So thank you all for coming. Today we have a speaker from within the group. Chris Kauffman has volunteered. And I think that there's nobody else on the list. So if you want to schedule yourself to speak to the group, let me know and I'll schedule you. Want to say hello to Mike Sardone from Spot On. He is our newest member, and welcome aboard with the whole crew.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
And Mike, your company will be featured in the June issue. I got everything I needed from Jillian, and we're putting it together now. So that will be a nice highlighted feature. So just
so it was
for our Atlanta.
I was given no part in being able to create that. All they did was they asked for my phone number and then they wrote nice things, which was nice, but it was just funny. So, better that the marketing people write it anyway, other than me. It's
Yeah.
much worded much more nicely. But yeah, no, very excited, very excited. Put me as the main contact for Georgia, so anything we can do to really help out.
Mail, your phone number, and everything in there, so you're good. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Chris, are you ready to go?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll let you do your presentation, and then we'll do ours after you. All right, so I want to introduce, without further ado, our member that nobody wants to follow.
Ed can do it this time. He missed last week.
Chris Kauffman.
That's my punishment. Yes. Good morning, everybody. This is Chris Kauffman, the only president Chris Kauffman and Company has ever had. I've been recruiting restaurant talent since 1981, ran restaurants from 74 until 81. My business is basically a branch of consulting. We work on behalf of the restaurant companies to bring them all-star talent. And that all-star is a nice little phrase to remember because that's also one of our telephone numbers, 404 All-Star, 404-255-7827. We primarily work Southeast United States, but we have worked throughout the country. We've placed people in Seattle, Washington, Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth, Texas, McLean, Virginia, etc. And it's originally started my recruiting business in Charlotte, moved the company that I was with up to McLean, Virginia, and then subsequently moved back to Atlanta to establish my own recruiting company in 1983. And currently reside in the sweet onion city of Vidalia, Georgia. But with the magic of Zoom calls, with the magic of communication being at just optimum these days, you can really be anywhere when you're in the recruiting game. And there's a lot of different opportunities out there for people of various backgrounds. We primarily focus as a specialist in the restaurant business. Now, there was a book put out by John Byrne, who was an editor of Business Week, and it was called The Headhunters. And I don't want to do anything other than impress upon you the importance of a specialist. And I'll read a little story here. This is a true story. It's by talking about a recruiter named John Witt. And this was one of his first assignments. And here's what happened. There was an order of Catholic nuns in Connecticut that lost their young managerial expert administrator. And he kept the books, he kept the beds filled, he kept the bills paid, and but he was gone. So they met with John Witt, and John Witt said, "Well, let's do a search." And the nun who was in charge of the hospital said, "Well, what do you mean a search?" He said, "Well, you'll hire us, and we'll find you somebody." And then the nun said, "Mr. Witt, you don't understand. He was a good Catholic boy." "Well, that's okay," the consultant shot back. "So spec number one is we want a good Catholic boy. What else? Is there anything else you want?" "Yes, I want him to have a large family, come from a large family, 5 children or more." "Fine. I want him to have had at least a family member who is a nun so he can understand the sisters." "Fine," Mr. Witt said. "We'll put that down." This was his first search. 7 weeks later, he came back to the nun who was running the hospital, and he said, "I not only had one candidate, I had 3 guys for her. They were all Catholic. They all had at least 5 kids. They all had at least one sister who was in a convent, and they all earned master's degrees in hospital administration." And the nun said, "Oh, Mr. Witt, you're a savior." So that type of precision is just a microcosm of what I get involved with every day, where companies, sometimes they're not that specific, but they will be giving me a lot of information that can help them enhance their human capital, if you will. Now, why use a recruiter when you can just put an ad on the internet? And I tell companies, go ahead and do it. Go ahead, and if you get somebody, hey, go for it. However, who's reading an ad on the internet? If you're happy doing what you're doing, are you really going out there on Indeed to look for another job? And so some of the best people are currently working, and they're happy doing what they're doing. So we have a database of people, several thousand people. That doesn't mean everybody fits for every position, that we tap into, and we network. And we've done internet responses. And a lot of times with the internet responses, you get the cream of the crap. And it's something where you have to just evaluate who you're talking to and what they're all about. Also, having been in the recruiting business now 43 years, it is amazing to me how some people come around again and again. I got a guy's resume recently. He said he was currently a director of operations for a TGI Fridays franchise. What this clown forgot to remember is that he had sent me his resume only 2 years ago when he was a manager trainee with TGI Fridays. And so I called him up and I said, "Now listen, which resume should we use?" He says, "What do you mean?" I said, "I got the one from a couple of years ago. You're a trainee and now you're director of operations." I'm having dinner. I'll call you back. Bye. And believe it or not, he has not yet called back. So, and then I love it when I talk with a company about using our services. "We never use recruiters. No, we don't need recruiters." Okay, that's fine. Onward and upward. And then about a year later, I'll get that guy's resume because he got terminated. And he's writing to me, hopefully I can find him a position. And I'm thinking, well, I thought you didn't use recruiters until you need one. And then it's amazing, they'll be on your back door begging for anything. But the reality is we don't find positions for people. We find people for positions. Somebody says to me, I sent my resume to a recruiter a month ago and he just sat on it. Well, his job is not to sit on resumes. The reason you probably did not hear from that recruiter is he didn't have anything that you were looking for. I talked to a guy and he said, well, I live in Charlotte and I need to stay on the east side of Charlotte. I said, really? What street? And so it kind of catches them a little bit. The longest placement I've ever made, and I verified this before I came out here this morning to talk about our business, the longest placement I've ever made, and he's still there, 39 years. Back in 1985, I placed Kevin Truesdale with Freshen's Yogurt. Kevin is still with the company. He's an executive now, but 39 years later, I think they got their money's worth on that fee. You tell me. And then, but I look at, in my business, anybody I meet is either a prospect, a candidate, a client company, or a referral. And it's all tax deductible, which is kind of good. So they say, Chris, how do you find people? And the answer is all of the above. I remember a search I was working on trying to find a chef for an Italian restaurant. And I was driving down Peachtree in Atlanta, and I was thinking, I got to find a chef. I got to find a chef. And there at the MARTA bus stop was a chef with the black chef pants and the white chef coat with a biotherm in his pocket. I'm going, there's a chef. Let me see what this guy's all about. So I did a U-turn, came back around, rolled the window down, and said, Chef, hey, where do you work? And he said, well, I work at an Italian restaurant over there by Perimeter Mall. I said, really? I said, let me pull over. We got to talk further. And I gave him my card. His name was Johnny Esco. Johnny Esco's father had an Italian restaurant in Atlanta back in the 60s and 70s. And so we were able to talk with Johnny and actually placed him with an Italian restaurant up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. He wanted to relocate from Atlanta anyway. So that was good that he was at the bus stop when we turned out to be the best ride possible. So anyway, the resumes we receive, even if it's somebody who already has a resume, are definitely 90% of the resumes we receive need work. And I can respect that because I'm not a culinary professional, and these people are not editorial writing professionals, but we can help them because I want to present my candidates in the best possible light that I can have. And when I get a resume in a PDF, we do have conversion software, but it's always better if we can get it in Microsoft Word because then I can make it look what it needs to look like. It's also amazing what you read on a resume sometimes. Like I had a guy's resume, it said this was a pastry chef for Marriott, and he had since left, but he started working for them in 1992, right after he graduated from high school. But in his resume, he wrote that he's a pastry chef and he granulated from high school in 1992. Granulated. And so, and then he went to work for Marriott for 20 years and he misspelled Marriott. Now, in 20 years, how many times did he see the word Marriott? Yeah, you be the judge. So anyway, the assignment we're working on now that's gotten some challenges is we have a client. It's $1 billion company, and they want a multi-unit person who's got multi-unit full service background and multi-unit quick service background. That's almost two different animals, because if you're running Hardee's, Arby's, etc., you're probably not running Red Lobster, Olive Garden, or Bahama Breeze or something like that. You might in your past, but we have been able to come up with a couple of players. I always wonder when I look back at a resume and I'm looking at where the position I'm representing to somebody, is this going to be a step up for the person? Because if it's not, well, we got to have a frank discussion about what's going on. I mean, I talk to guys, I'm looking for growth. I said, well, I've got a great company, but they are not growing. They don't have any plans to grow. Well, you know what, Chris? My real ambition, I just bought a house. I want to stay in this part of Florida. Okay, well, then you may be able to achieve that big time. Now, how much are the fees? And the answer is all over the map. This is a very unregulated industry, like consulting is. And just as Steve Whitehill will tell you, it's not the same percentage for every transaction he gets involved with in buying and selling restaurants. And so basically, and sometimes you run into a company that'll say, we pay 22% of the first year's salary, period, paragraph. That's what we pay. If you want 25%, if you want 30%, you're talking to the wrong company. Okay. So as a recruiter, you have a decision to make. Do I work at 22%, even though I'm traditionally out there at 25% or 30%? Or do I go ahead and move down the road? So, and basically, we've worked fees at 10%. We've worked fees at 15%. We've worked fees at 30%. It is all over the map. At the executive level, it tends to be more in the 25 to 30% range because of the impact and the value that recruiter that is going to bring, who that recruiter is going to bring to the table. And every recruiter should have an off limits list. I have an off limits list. There's some companies I cannot recruit from because I'm currently working for them. For example, Darden Restaurants, currently doing work for them. Therefore, if I get a call from somebody who says, hey, get us somebody from Darden, I politely say, I can't do that. Now, maybe 2 years from now, if we haven't done anything in 2 years, everybody understands it's an off limits type of deal, and that's fine. But every recruiting firm does have an off limits list. When IBM was looking to hire a CEO, they paid a $500,000 recruiting fee to this company, Russell Reynolds, and $500,000 recruiting fee to Heidrick and Struggles, two major executive search firms. The reason they did that, because there's some companies Russell Reynolds could not call, and there's some companies Heidrick and Struggles could not call. Now, why would they pay like $1 million in a recruiting fee? Well, if you've got a $10 billion company and that CEO can move that needle just 1%, that's more than paid for the fee. And that's the value proposition. So bring it back down to a kitchen manager. All right. So a kitchen manager recruiting fee is $7,500, $2,500 down, $5,000 when the person starts. So if that restaurant's doing $4 million and they're currently running a 30% food cost, and that chef can get, the kitchen manager can get that down to 28%, 2% of $4 million, $80,000. That's a pretty good return. So the business, what we like to do, we like to get some money down, and that's called a retainer, if you will. We have work contingency, but the reason we don't like to work contingency is because I'm dealing with somebody who has no skin in the game. And when we work on a retainer basis, we tend to have tremendous, excellent two-way communication. So open the floor for any comments or questions, concerns at this time.
Chris, I got a question for you. With all the court rulings coming down about non-compete agreements, how does that affect your business?
Well, probably on a case-by-case basis, on a state-by-state basis. You know, if it gets to be an overarching federal deal, you know, it's where companies do their best to protect. I mean, there's probably be a legal workaround. It has not really affected us at this point in time, because we just haven't really run into that. That it really hasn't been a roadblock.
Is
So,
it common in the restaurant business to have non-compete agreements
no,
with employees? Not, okay,
no,
just curious.
yeah.
Hey, Chris,
Um,
I've got one for you. So, let's say a company hires your recruiting firm. What would be the statute to say, you know what, we're no longer going to work with you because of X, Y, Z? That's your decision with them. I mean, obviously, they're hiring you, but if you ever run into a situation that you can discuss of why you had to let that particular company go.
most I can think of situations on contingency where that happened, but not on retainer, because retainer, where they've put some money down, we've always been able to perform. And if perchance they happen to have somebody fall out of the sky that they hire and they've already paid us a down payment, my deal is I want to keep the client company, so I let them know that down payment can be applied to any other search in the future. But it is a non-refundable down payment because we're using that money to immediately go to work on their behalf. One of the things we use the money for is sometimes we have to engage a research firm, and a research firm will dig and get us a list of names that may fit a certain criteria. One of the neatest placements I ever made was a vice president of marketing for Red Lobster, and this goes way back in the 80s, but I ran into Joe Lee, who was the CEO of, it was called General Mills Restaurants at that time, and I saw him at one of the restaurants they owned called Casa Gallardo. And I went up to him and I introduced myself, said, "Hey, Mr. Lee, I'm Chris Kauffman, and I was a manager of Red Lobster back in the 70s, 74. And, he said, "What are you doing now?" I said, "I'm a recruiter and specialize in the restaurant business." He said, "Well, let me tell you, we need a vice president of marketing for Red Lobster, and I need somebody who's booked television time." I said, "Okay, great." He said, "Here's the person in vice president personnel to catch up to, and he'll do the paperwork." I said, "Okay." They didn't want to go retainer, and that's fine. So I thought to myself, okay, I got to get somebody who's booked television time. Now, this is like 1982, and I used to subscribe to Advertising Age magazine because I love to read about marketing and what companies are doing. And there was an article in there, Daryl Diamond has resigned as vice president of marketing of Wendy's. I said, that's the guy. That's the guy. Wendy's, they're on television. So I called him up. He was in the book in Dublin, Ohio. And he said, "Hey, thank you so much for the call, Chris. But you know what? The reason I left Wendy's, I've got my own entrepreneurial deal going on. However, you need to call my friend Ray Caruso at McDonald's. He's been there about 15 years. He's excellent." So I called Ray, and one conversation led to another. Ray wound up as vice president of marketing for Red Lobster. But I would not have found Ray had it not been a conversation with Daryl Diamond, which was stimulated by an article in the Advertising Age magazine. And because back then there weren't that many restaurants advertising on television. And so when Joe Lee gave me the core criteria, that's the answer to the test. Okay. Now, if they had put an ad in Restaurant News, Ray Caruso may or may not have seen it. He may or may not have wanted to send in his resume to a P.O. box, but they didn't put an ad in Restaurant News for that. And then when you do that, the other people in the marketing department might go, hey, what about me? What are we running an ad for? And so the confidentiality factor is really important. And we value on keeping that trust with our client companies.
Is there one more part of the country that you see more active than others as far as the area where people are needing chefs and executives and such?
Southeast United States, red hot.
Okay.
Red hot.
Any idea why that area is red hot? Other than
more because the demand for restaurants, as Terry will tell you, is exploding in Florida and also in Georgia to a certain degree. These are pro-business states, and people are leaving the high tax states of New Jersey and New York and Illinois, and they're heading south where you get a lot more bang for your buck in a house. You don't have to pay usury rates on taxes, and what you're experiencing there in Huntsville. I mean, and all of a sudden, it gets to be just a madhouse. And one thing that happens sometimes like in the 80s and 90s, TGI Fridays was a red hot concept. They used to make all the food in the restaurant back in those days. And we'd get calls, get us somebody from Fridays. But we were not working with Fridays. So that's fine. But here's the mistake people make. If you're getting Sam Jones from Fridays, you get Sam Jones. You don't get Friday's menu development department. You don't get Friday's marketing department. You don't get Friday's leasing department. You get Sam Jones, who has run a Fridays. That's what you get, because a lot of times they'll say, okay, Sam, make our restaurant just like Fridays. And the reality is, no, Sam has seen some good things, but you know, it's a group effort over there at Fridays headquarters, as it is everywhere. And I think one of the reasons I've always liked recruiting, always liked documentaries. I always liked the History Channel and the food that made America. You know, shows like that you know, just tell a story. We don't even teach history in the restaurant business. I got a guy's resume from Outback Steakhouses recently, and I said, "Does Chris Sullivan still work over there?" And Chris Sullivan is one of the founders of the company. He goes, "Chris, no, I never heard of him. Never heard of him." Okay. You know, you pull into a McDonald's, I'll take an egg and muffin, a cup of coffee. Oh, by the way, is Ray Kroc working tonight? And they'll actually go, just a minute, is Ray Kroc working tonight? Anyway, but Chris Kauffman providing all-star talent, 404 all-star, 404-255-7827. Thank you very much. Come back to see us.
Thanks.
Good. That was great. Chris, that second
Thank you.
Excellent.
did it work out at all?
Say what?
That second lead that I sent you, how did that go?
Operators, the second lead?
Yeah, it was for a GM that he needed a position.
Was it a candidate or client company?
No, it was a candidate that needed to be placed.
Oh.
You know what? Send it.
Huh?
He was a GM, a GM that needed a job in the industry. I'll resend it to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Hey, Chris,
Yes, Brian.
maybe you should try that at Chick-fil-A and ask if Truiton.
Yeah. Yeah. He's looking kind of rough these days.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. That was a very enlightening conversation. I'm you got Dwayne, he's still with us. I believe Dwayne is scheduled for next week. Are we still?
I am, baby.
Are you okay with that?
For next week. So far I am. It's just kind of bring me up to speed, since Chris is a history buff. I'm going to brag a little bit. If anybody has ever heard of the Montford Point Marines.
Yeah.
Sitting there and Mike, Brian.
I didn't.
All right. So the Montford Point Marines were the first African American men that were allowed to enlist in the Marines. And after 2 years of working on this project, confirmed my father was a Montford Point Marine.
Oh, wonderful.
We'll be getting the United States Congressional Gold Medal of Honor posthumously on July 13th in Philadelphia, my hometown.
Oh, wow.
So
Awesome.
Congratulations.
that's a piece of history for you.
Cool. Was he World War II?
So,
I mean, was it World War II?
Yeah. President Roosevelt in 41 enacted law that no longer allowed the country to discriminate in terms of enlisting and doing business with the military, et cetera, et cetera. So from 42 to 48 or 49, all of the African American men. This is a lot like Red Tails or Tuskegee Airmen type scenario. Yeah. So pretty pumped about that. But Howard, was I supposed to be doing an introduction now? And please forgive me if I'm skittish and a little all over the place. I just finished working an overnight shift, so I just really got home and haven't been asleep since yesterday. So forgive me.
Okay.
You are forgiven.
Howard, is it?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll introduce myself since we have some new folks that have joined our group. Is that what you'd have me do?
Yeah, go ahead. Do your intro, and if you can't, if you're not going to be able to make it next week as a presenter, let me know during the week.
All right, copy that. Also, I had texted with Terry Ark, and she said you might have some information to share with me about a meeting you guys had or whatever, some possible business, which I could definitely use. So, my name again is Dwayne Wilson. I'm with EPOMS, that is Environmental Peace of Mind Sanitizing. And at EPOMS, mantra and motto, if you will, we want to bring that peace of mind into your environment by disinfecting and sanitizing your indoor air quality or your indoor space and enhancing your indoor air quality. All right. I use a hospital grade disinfectant that is environmentally safe. It's approved for all food contact surfaces, no rinse, no wipe required, multiple uses, and the application is through an electrostatic spray system. So if anybody's familiar with the electrostatic platform, you know, most innate objects, tables, chairs, or whatever the case may be, are negatively charged. And when it comes out of positively charged. Oh boy, I need to get some sleep. So, does what? They bond.
Dwayne, for whatever reason, there's a lot of static coming off your
coverage and saturation. And
Dwayne.
Well, it keeps talking about low bandwidth.
Is it me or is it does everybody hear that?
Can't hear you.
He said low band. He said he has low bandwidth.
Right.
No, he's right. Next.
Buffering.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
You know, it's funny, Howard, because history, everybody's talking, including Wayne, that was your thing. Howard went to a lot of trouble to do, as Chris said, that big history on closed restaurants, and he was going.
For now, I'm having trouble with you. Yeah. Can you guys hear Terry?
She's breaking up too.
Breaking up. You're breaking up also.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Anyway, Howard wanted to do a history test today. He went to a lot of research to find closed restaurants in a certain decade. I bet you Chris Kauffman would know the answers probably to all of us. So
next week.
At any rate, if he doesn't, yeah, that's
anyway.
Howard. I think it's 21.
All right, Dwayne. So the static is coming off of your rig there. So anyway, in the meantime, I think you should talk. Can you hear me?
I'm catching every other word from anybody.
Right.
So it's like I'm fighting, trying to hear. If I turn my mute off. I mean, I got an old laptop. I got an old Acer, so it's probably me. I don't doubt it. That's why I got the low bandwidth.
In any event, I would recommend that you get in touch with Charles I don't think you met Charles. Charles is
Charles Hay.
right there. Yeah.
Is that Charles Hay in Atlanta?
You guys should hook up.
Is that,
In fact, Charles, why don't you do your intro now? You're on mute.
Oh, hey everyone, my name's Charles. I'm the owner of On the Fly Food Safety. We teach the Service Safe Manager course in 4 hours. We're out of Jacksonville, but if you need me to come to you, I just need notice and we'll get to you on the fly. We'll be in Miami, June 17th and July 22nd, and in Orlando, June 18th and July 23rd. So if you need a class done quick, we can take care of you. And if you need to get a hold of me, my phone number is 904-923-2577. And my email address is info@ontheflyfoodsafety.com.
Okay, great. So you guys, I think you guys should hook up at least for a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I have Charles on my list. We were on the call before previously, so I made a notation.
Well,
8, 9.
You guys gotta try to arrange that. Mike Sardone. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So, I am Mike Sardone. I'm the Georgia State Manager with Spot On Point of Sale Systems. One of the main goals of what we try to do is, as far as a point of system goes, is to feel non-existent. So it basically should be a tool. It should always work, always be competent, and granted, you should always be happy. So try to really expand on some of those outside bases, grow clients, retain your clients, boost profitability, and then also improve employee engagement. We have a lot of processes, integrations. It's a cloud-based solution, and a lot of ways we can help you grow your business. So, cool. Contact info. So sorry, Mike Sardone. My number is 678-231-2279, and my email is mike.sardone, SARDONE @spoton.com.
Okay, thank you.
Second time.
And welcome aboard. Ed, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. This is Ed Gerton with Seco Sales in Orange Park, Florida, which is just outside of downtown Jacksonville, Florida. We are a equipment supply company that specializes in frozen dessert equipment. So we have soft serve machines, batch freezers by Carpigiani, along with whipped cream machines, display cases by ESA, GTI Design, IFI. We have drink machines through Carpigiani Horeca out of Spain. You can reach me at 904-334-4489, and have a good day.
Okay. I'll send you the info after the meeting, Ed.
That's fine.
Okay. Rick, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, Chris Kauffman, thank you very much. Very informative. You did a great job. I'm glad I didn't have to follow after you. Rick Israel with Affiliated Health Insurers here in Huntsville, Alabama. We are a independent brokerage firm. We help individuals with group health benefits, employer paid and voluntary benefits, and of course Medicare. But I want to bring one thing real quick to something that we are really focusing on right now is drug prices. We received a report from one of our groups. It's an 18-man group. Total paid claims of the insurance by the insurance company was $30,934.61 for a 9-month period. $21,000 of that was just in pharmaceuticals, and that's why our health system is so broken, because of the price of drugs. Only $10,000 of that was paid in medical claims. So what we're focusing on today, and we're actually meeting with 2 congressional aides for the 5th District of Alabama, is what is our federal government doing about the price of medications, not only for group benefits, but also for Medicare benefits. So we focus on that as well, which then entails our goal is to keep as much money in your pocket as possible when you're either in group or on the Medicare side, because obviously when you're in Medicare, you're living on a very limited budget. And the biggest complaint we hear is the cost of meds. So I can be reached at 256-937-2537. And email is rickbamainsurance@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
Okay, Brian, good morning.
Morning, everybody. Brian with Rogue Financial Group. We are a commercial equipment financing company. I work with pretty much all industries, but mostly focus in the hospitality side, which is restaurants, bars, breweries, convenience stores, things like that. So we are a commercial equipment financing company. We'll finance startups. When I say startups, from the get-go, never been open, to existing business. I am working on some projects. One of the projects is actually in Jacksonville. Strings, which has a location on Main Street in Jacksonville, is looking to open a place over on the beach. And they are growing. So that's one thing. And another thing, but again, Rogue is a commercial equipment financing company. I could reach the 404-723-7222. Then also, I sent Terry something that maybe she kind of could relate on. I came across with one of my vendors telling me that he bought, I think 4 or 5 franchises. One's going in outside of Augusta, Georgia, called Foster's Freeze. And Terry kind of said she worked there before in California. So they are opening up. This is the first of 5 outside of east of the Mississippi. So it's a franchise and they are growing. So that's all I know, but Terry can take it from there. But again, I'm Brian with Rogue Financial Group. I can be reached at 404-723-7222. Thanks, and y'all have a good weekend.
Thank you. Steve, good morning.
Good morning. Sorry I had to leave. Can you let me share my screen? I'm good.
Of course.
So I'm Steve Whitehill. I'm a business broker. I help people buy and sell businesses. Today I have a little tune for you to see, and it's something you keep in mind when you buy a business.
Howard, share the screen. Thank you.
So here it is.
I didn't know if you heard him.
It's done.
Anyway, this just goes to show you the many factors you need to take into consideration when you buy a business. This was just one of them. I wanted to thank Brian again for introducing me to a customer of his, and I'm sorry it didn't work out, but you never know how these things go. Steve Whitehill, Anchor Business Brokers, and I can be reached at 561-376-7500, or my email address is steve, S-T-E-V-E, @anchorbb.com. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Terry.
Good morning. Sorry, Howard, I didn't hear you acknowledge that you had heard.
Share the screen for future reference. The share the screen is turned on at the beginning of the meeting, so anybody who needs it, it's on.
Got it. Rick, I want to thank you, first of all, for switching my drug plan. I had gone to, I'm not going to mention because we're being recorded, to where I used to get my medications, and they said that'll be $36. And I went, what? I said, that's okay. I'll go to the other place where I get all my other ones. $1. I saved $35 for a 30-day subscription of an old drug. So I want to really, really thank you for that, Rick.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, excellent presentation, of course. I would expect nothing less. Brian, yes, Foster Freeze was my very first job. I was in high school. I was 15 years old. I went there to work part-time in the evenings, and I became actually the assistant manager. The owner said, you work so hard. She trusted me to close up the place. And that was my very first job. Foster's Freeze is based in California, for anybody that doesn't know. Very similar to a Dairy Queen, except the ice cream is better. Okay.
So, she must still be getting residuals from that company, so she had to say that, right?
And she said, I've never seen such a hard worker. I was trying to make money to buy a dress for the prom. It turned out that my ex-husband, who's now deceased, had bought me my prom dress, so I didn't need to work, but I worked anyway. So
I wanted to, by the way, thank Rick. He switched me to a different carrier for my Medicare prescription drugs, and they did something I've never seen done before. They actually called me to remind me that I hadn't refilled some of my prescriptions.
that's wonderful. That's what they do. Absolutely. And what it's for the month. So if anybody wants a sample of what's going on, what's coming in, please let me know. Terry at trnusa.com, and I'm happy to send you a sample of these monthly reports, which are second to none. We had a record last month or the month before of almost 90 brand new, under construction, lease signed, coming in, broke ground, whatever it was. And yes, there's a lot of things coming into Florida. Holy cow. Georgia, some. I have a Georgia report as well. If you go on the website and look at the form, you're going to call us and say, wait a second, this isn't very expensive. It is not. We get it, but you don't pay that price. Give me a call. You're in our groups. I'll let you know what you do pay. Thank you. Everybody have a good weekend.
Terry, I apologize. Didn't mean to step on you.
Oh, not at all. I'm glad that you did and said, you know, you got to say things. This is an ad-lib group.
And I just so you guys are aware, you know I've brought this up before. Most individuals are going to end up changing their plans next year, so just be prepared.
All right. I get all the old stuff, but when they offer me the new stuff, I tell them, no, the old stuff's fine. I'm doing great. You know, I'm sorry I can't put that extra money in the doctor's pockets. However, what I'm doing works. So,
all right, let me officially bring this meeting to a close because we're over. I want to thank everybody for coming today. Chris, again, thank you for a great presentation. And Dwayne, we look forward to your presentation next week. Salt, if you have a minute after the meeting, just hang out for a second. And have a great weekend. Stay safe. And we'll see you next week. Let the sauce be with you.
And how